I'm interested in the ideologies that are expressed through urban design, and I'm quite uh, sensitive to the way in which a city plan might indicate a respect for human occupation as opposed to, these edifices that more than likely start to indicate corporate or other kinds of power. I focus on architecture primarily because the city form is a diagram of an ideal order. And so you probably, I wouldn't even be surprised that if in Kelowna that there's some conflicts or whatever about city planning, everywhere you go there are these conflicts. And what I really am interested in is what ideology is expressed by the advocates of those changes, and what voice does the citizenry have in regards to redefining that ideology. If the architecture is of such a monumental scale, what happens, what happens in those situations is that you might know, let's say you work in that building or you live in a large apartment building like that, you might know a few neighbors on your floor or maybe up above you or down below you, but in general, there's a kind of anonymity in those environments. So you just kind of go to your place, that's it, and you don't have any human interaction with anybody else. I do work in a variety of medium, and the reason I do is because the kinds of questions that I ask oftentimes require a different kind of medium to address what I'm asking. A good example is the large wall drawings. Those are complete fictions. I couldn't physically build those environments. The primary motivation has to do with structure, how things are put together. And so the rivers of white, for example, I was curious because for the longest time when I read, I see those spaces in between, those little lines that run down the page. And I thought, geez, that's kind of a subliminal structure in a book. And so I started marking those, and then of course the prints came out of those marks. There was a structure that had nothing to do with the book, the text itself. And so what I was trying to reveal there when I did all those prints is that there's this other structure that exists. But also the outcome of that was that it also subverted the narrative. So when you look at these things, all these different marks there, what you end up with is just the marks. It has no connection whatsoever to the narrative example. And I should say that rivers of white are a typographical term. It's the bane of typesetters. When they used to set type by hand, that they always tried to space the words so that those things didn't occur. I chose War and Peace because a lot of my work looks at power. It looks at power relationships. And I thought War and Peace was a fabulous classic. And so I sought out the best, or the most respected English translation of that book. I wanted to divide the book up. I wanted to have an edition of 25 prints. That would make a kind of collection of the prints. And they're numbered sequentially. Every one of the prints is comprised of 56 pages of the book compressed. There's an additional print that's not part of that 25 sequence that is an amalgam of every page in the book laid on top of each other. And what's curious about that piece is that the image is the result of the way that the machine, i.e. the computer, saw the compilation of all this imagery. And it's kind of, to me, it's kind of funny. It's like a shag carpet or something. I don't know. I think it's Urban 4 is based on research that I did in Paris. And I spent a couple of months on two different occasions in Paris photographing and walking the city. I wanted some kind of ceremonial access that is based on fascist architecture, but it's also an impression that I have of the really wide, long boulevards, and at the end of it you have the Arc de Triomphe, or something like that, some edifice that signifies authority and in the city. And so that runs through the center of the piece, and on one side of the piece there is what I consider to be a kind of aristocratic environment. The buildings are tall, the boulevards are wide, and all the axes of the boulevards converge on a single point. Whereas on the other side of that ceremonial axis, you have a more helter-skelter kind of arrangement of buildings, more casual relationships. There are no long boulevard vistas or anything like that. And that, to me, kind of signifies the working class or the more medieval neighborhoods or even the factory sections of Paris. And so by setting up those two contrasts, separated by this ceremonial access, which indicates a kind of authority, a sense of authority over those. The boulevards in the aristocratic section all come toward that ceremonial axis. Therefore, the indication is that they are in conjunction with the mandate of that authority. Whereas on the other side, it's all mixed up, and they don't seem to have the same kind of respect or homage to that seat of power. The other one, the freeway piece, I could tell you, that was Urban 2. That came about from my knowing a little neighborhood in Detroit. And it was made up of these houses of very, very poor people. Well, the powers that be decided that they had to go. So there were a few holdouts. A lot of people were bought out and they left. And the reason that they bought them out is that they wanted a freeway to run right through that neighborhood. Okay, so the people that held out ended up living underneath the freeway. Crazy. And so what I did was I kind of flipped it, and I used the model of a kind of California ranch house with its own swimming pool, etc., underneath the freeway, to kind of show that usually those California ranch houses belong to the wealthy. But where's the corporate mandate? Where's the prioritization of the seat of power? Does it rest with the people of wealth, or does it rest with some other alternative? Commerce, for example. The reason we have freeways is because of moving freight, moving cars, etc., moving all this material, and to these various points of processing or whatever, shipping, whatever. And so I just tried to turn that upside down in that piece. I would be happy if people, when they walk out of the gallery, they took a look around and they think, oh, why is this the way it is? What does this express? Does it express some kind of feeling that people are welcome here, that there's a sense of community? Or when they look down the street, is it just a series of little buildings that house various businesses? And if so, do people feel that they can express themselves, or that they can have a sense of community if they're excluded from that streetscape?